Hello everyone, and a warm welcome from Visaman UK. This video is about how to get your family to the UK, or in other words, dependent visas, because this is something that I get asked a lot of the times, because there are a lot of people who wish to bring their families in the UK either with them through entry clearance, or if they're already in the UK and they want to get their spouse and or their children to the UK. Now, what I'm going to talk about in this video, because there are so many categories and so many different situations and circumstances, some of the rules can change depending on what country you're coming from, etc., etc. So I'm going to focus more on tier 2 dependent visas, because as my subscribers know, I tend to be more specific towards a few categories rather than be generic towards all categories, because obviously your circumstances are best known to yourself. So you will need to check the rules once again as well, but this will be a good guide for you. So as I just mentioned, what type of situations would you typically find yourselves in? You could either already be in the UK and wish to get your dependents, your wife, your husband, your children along to join you in the UK, or you could be outside the UK. You got an offer, a genuine offer, you've got all the documents with you, and what you wish to do is you wish to make sure your spouse or your children can apply with you and get entry clearance together. Or in some situations you could be in the UK and your spouse could also be in the UK on a different visa category, excluding visitor visas, because visitor visas cannot be converted into tier 2 dependent visas. I mean, a special shout out here to some people who advise other people that in no situation is a tier 2 dependent visa granted in the UK from other categories. I beg to differ there, to be honest. In my own personal experience, I've helped people out wherein a spouse was already in the UK on a student visa and wanted to get it converted to a dependent visa rather, because her husband was here as well, and they got it done successfully, and even without a premium appointment. So they got it done successfully through a postal application. Very easy process, as long as your job is genuine and you've got all the evidences, all the documents to prove your relationship. So yeah, so these are the situations you could find yourself in. And now to the components of the application process. What does the application process look like overall? Well, firstly, to begin with, you'll have application forms. If you're the main applicant and seeking entry clearance, there will obviously be an application form for yourself. The main thing to remember is that for each applicant, there will be a separate application form to be filled in. So, for instance, if you've got a spouse and 2 children, then essentially there'll be 3 application forms for all of them. And then if you're applying with them, then in total there'll be 4 application forms going to the Home Office together. And the main thing, obviously the most important aspect, is to make sure all documents are available with you, all documents are submitted, and genuine documents are submitted, no Xerox copies or anything of that sort. And what type of documents do you need? You obviously need evidence of your employment, evidence of your sponsorship, your financial evidence, your accommodation evidence. Well, in terms of financial evidence, it's mainly payslips. You obviously know that you'll have to prove that you're able to sustain yourself and your dependents in the UK. You'll have to read a little bit about that to ensure that you fall in the right categories. And then accommodation evidence of you owning or renting an accommodation where it's allowed to bring your spouse over. And then relationship evidence, all forms, basically to ensure that the Home Office understands that your relationship with your spouse is a genuine relationship. And then obviously there are other considerations, other components like the immigrant health surcharge, So each applicant will need to pay the immigrant health surcharge depending upon how many years they would join you for, and then each applicant will need to enroll their biometric information. So all of these are like essential components, and obviously we will delve deeper into each element through this presentation. So if the main applicant is already in the UK, we'll use this as an example because most of the things are in common, whichever route, whichever situation you're in. Most of these types of evidences are in common, that you can relate it to your situation and make changes accordingly. So what will you need? You'll obviously need evidence of your employment. That is one of the most important aspects, obviously. You'll need to ensure that you've got your main offer letter, your statements, terms and conditions, everything, absolutely everything. Just make sure you put absolutely everything related to your employment. Also try and get a letter from your company. So depends. For instance, if you're applying for a permanent residency, you will definitely need a letter from your company stating that we will continue to employ this candidate, etc. So again, it all varies depending upon your circumstances, but just make sure you produce absolutely every single evidence. Just read the rules and make sure you submit everything that relates you to your organization. Your biometric resident permit and passport, obviously the most important element, is the most important aspect of the application process, is to prove that the main applicant himself or herself is legally in the UK. Payslips, extremely important. Just add as many payslips, 6 months, 12 months, it doesn't matter. Put them all in, you will get them all back anyway. Address proofs, so details like your bills, telephone bills, your electricity bills, gas bills, or if you don't have any of those, bills of your accommodation from your landlord. All of these are essential. This is to prove that your wife, your husband, your children, etc. are living together, will be living together, beg your pardon, with you in a particular type of accommodation and will be allowed to do so. Proof of finances. Now this is very important. A lot of the time I get asked these questions and I want you to pay good attention to this. Proof of finances, if we are talking specifically about Tier 2 dependent applications, proof of finances is not required if your sponsor certifies your maintenance. So on the certificate of sponsorship there is a field right at the end, just a simple field, very innocent looking field, a question which asks your employer, do you as an employer certify the maintenance of your employee, of the candidate? And if you can convince your company to put yes there, it will make your life a lot easier. So basically, if it's yes for you, it is yes for all of your dependents. So your company essentially certifies maintenance of you and all of the applicants that come with you. So that is extremely important. If you have that checked, if you have a yes to that question, you don't need to worry about your finances. You still, just to be on the safer side, keep some money aside and provide your proof of finances, provide your bank statements, but it's not required if your company, if your organization certifies your maintenance. Okay, all evidence of your relationship, extremely important. Now, I've come across situations where people have been in the UK for quite some time and then they decide to, after a certain number of years, after a few years, they decide to get their spouses over to join them, spouses, children, etc. And it's extremely important, especially in such circumstances, for you to be able to prove that your relationship, your marriage, is sustainable and is genuine. So you have to provide various documents, like all sorts of communication that you've had with your partner over the years, screenshots, printouts of emails, whatever it is. Also provide scans of tickets that you've used to travel to your country, or email confirmations of bookings. Absolutely everything possible. It's always better to provide more documents than necessary. You'll get them back anyway. It's their responsibility. I haven't seen them messing about with documents anyway. And yes, it's also important to note that there's no English language requirements for Tier 2 dependents. So you don't have to worry about English language requirements for sure. So, one of the questions that people ask me is also whether to go for standard or premium applications. It doesn't really matter that much, but obviously I always recommend premium application for people if they have the financial means to do so. There's a huge price difference, obviously, but also there's a difference in the time frame. So it depends on how you want to weigh time against expenses, and basically time's the only gain that you get out of premium applications. The standard applications work the same way, pretty much the same way as premium applications. It's just that in standard applications you have to go separately for biometric enrollments, either to post offices or to visa application centers, as you prefer. And in premium applications your appointment will include biometric enrollment. What are some of the frequently asked questions? Again, I know we've covered a lot of these things already, but what are some FAQs? For entry clearance, so we've already talked about a situation where you are already in the UK and you want to get your family over, but there will be situations where you would like entry clearance with your family to the UK. And in such situations, I always highly recommend that you find a way for all of you to apply together. It will save a lot on your expenses, and it will just be a very good feeling. Trust me, I always advise it, and it will always save you a lot of expenses, energy, time, and everything if you just apply together. I've thankfully been able to help people out in their combined applications, and it doesn't make a difference to the Home Office. It's not that there is a higher chance of success if you apply as an individual and then get your family over. That is that's misinformation that's been provided to people. Don't fall for that. And then obviously if your circumstances are different, most of these forms of evidences that we have discussed here will remain roughly the same. But if you have any specific questions, as always, feel free to put it in the comments, because as you can understand, it's not possible to cover each and every type of circumstance in one video. So what I've done is I've provided like a brief overview, which is hopefully helpful, and you can fire away your questions for me to answer. And as you know, I've got a 100% response rate anyway. Yeah, and in terms of relationships, again, I think I've already detailed this point in my previous section, that provide all possible types of evidences. Just don't risk them thinking that this is a fake marriage or just a pretense to get somebody over to the UK. Just always try your level best to establish that your relationship with your spouse is genuine. And also, if you're new in this country and if you intend to bring your spouse over at some point, maybe in the next few years, please try your level best to ensure that you keep a record of your communication with your spouse. And also, hear me out here, very important, please visit your home country to visit your spouse on a regular basis as well. Maybe at least once a year, I'd say, but once in 6 months would be preferable. This would basically give you an opportunity to present these as evidences to prove to the Home Office that yes, this is a real relationship, it's sustainable, and it will continue. The relationship will sustain once your partner starts living in the UK with you. And yes, over and above everything, just make sure you still understand all of the rules specific to your circumstance, and all of the exceptions. For instance, if you've got family in the UK and some of them belong to the armed forces, then in some situations you might be exempt from immigrant health surcharge. So there are various exemptions that apply to each category, so it is important that you read all of these terms and conditions and rules to understand if any of these exemptions are applicable to you. And more important than anything else, thank you very much for listening and viewing this video. And as I just said, just please feel free to fire away your questions in the comment section, or email me at weezermanuk@gmail.com as always. And hopefully I was able to address most questions in your mind and make the application process smoother for you. And as always, if you found this video helpful, support my content, support this video and other videos, my channel, pardon. Keep liking the videos, recommend people to subscribe, and just feel free to pose as many comments. As you know, I always respond to comments, and I always love you guys. Okay, thank you very much once again. Bye bye.